Toy Story is a 1995 American computer animated buddy comedy adventure film produced by Pixar Animation Studio for Walt Disney Pictures. The directorial debut of John Lasseter, Toy Story was the first ever feature-length computer animated film and the first feature film produced by Pixar. Taking place in a world where anthropomorphic toys pretend to be lifeless whenever humans are present, the film's plot focused on the relationship between Woody, an old-fashioned pull-string cowboy doll voiced by Tom Hanks, and Buzz Lightyear, an astronaut action figure voiced by Tim Allen. The pair evolves from rivals competing for the affections of Andy, their owner, to friends who work together to be reunited with Andy as his family prepares to move to a new home. The screenplay was written by Joss Whedon, Andrew Stanton, Joel Cohen, and Alex Sokolow, based on a story by Lasseter, Pete Docter, Stanton, and Joe Ranft. The film features music by Randy Newman and was executive produced by Steve Jobs and Edwin Catmull. Pixar, which produced short animated films to promote their computers, was approached by Disney to produce a computer animated feature after the success of their short film Tin Toy in 1988. Lasseter, Stanton, and Docter wrote early story treatments which were thrown out by Disney, as they wanted the film to be edgier. After disastrous story reels, production was halted and the script was rewritten, better reflecting the tone and theme Pixar desired, that toys deeply want children to play with them and that the desire drives their hopes, fears, and actions. The studio, then consisting of a relatively small number of employees, produced the film under minor financial constraints. Toy Story was released in theaters on November 22, 1995, and was the highest-grossing film on its opening weekend, earning over $373 million at the worldwide box office. The film was positively reviewed by critics and audiences who praised the animation's technical innovation, the wit and thematic sophistication of the screenplay, and the vocal performances of Hanks and Allen. It is considered by many critics to be one of the best animated films ever made. The film received 3 Academy Award nominations, including Best Original Screenplay, Best Original Score, and Best Original Song for You've Got a Friend in Me. It also won a Special Achievement Academy Award. It was inducted into the National Film Registry as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant in 2005, its first year of eligibility. In addition to home media releases and theatrical releases, Toy Story-inspired material has run the gamut from toys, video games, theme park attractions, spin-offs, merchandise, and 2 sequels, Toy Story 2 in '99 and Toy Story 3 in 2010, both of which also garnered massive commercial success and critical acclaim, with the 3rd sequel, Toy Story 4, slated for a 2019 release. Director John Lasseter's first experience with computer animation was during his work as an animator at Walt Disney Feature Animation, when 2 of his friends showed him the light cycle scene from Tron. It was an eye-opening experience which awakened Lasseter to the possibilities offered by the new medium of computer-generated animation. Lasseter tried to pitch The Brave Little Toaster as a fully computer-animated film to Disney, but the idea was rejected and Lasseter was fired.
You are fired!
He then went on to work at Lucasfilm and later as a founding member of Pixar, which was purchased by entrepreneur and Apple co-founder Steve Jobs in 1986. At Pixar, Lasseter created short computer-animated films to show off the Pixar Image computer's capabilities, and Tin Toy, a short story told from the perspective of a toy referencing Lasseter's love of classic toys, would go on to claim the 1988 Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film, the first computer-generated film to do so. Tin Toy gained Disney's attention, and the new team at the Walt Disney Company, CEO Michael Eisner and Chairman Jeffrey Katzenberg in the film division, began a quest to get Lasseter to come back. Lasseter, grateful for Jobs' faith in him, felt compelled to stay with Pixar, telling co-founder Ed Catmull that he can go to Disney and be a director, or he can stay and make history. Katzenberg realized he could not lure Lasseter back to Disney and therefore set plans into motion to ink a production deal with Pixar to produce a film. Disney had always made all their movies in-house and refused to change this, but when Tim Burton, who used to work at Disney, wanted to buy back the rights to The Nightmare Before Christmas, Disney struck a deal allowing him to make it as a Disney movie outside the studio. This opened the door for Pixar to make their movies outside of Disney. The original treatment for Toy Story, drafted by Lasseter, Andrew Stanton, and Pete Docter, had little in common with the eventually finished film. It paired Tinny, the one-man band from Tin Toy, with a ventriloquist dummy and sent them on a sprawling odyssey. Under studio head Jeffrey Katzenberg, Woody was the main villain, abusing the other toys until they rallied against him.
Say, you weren't thinking of flying, were you?
Well...
You know Andy loves toys that can fly.
Really? Well then, to infinity and beyond!
You know, Andy loves toys that he can find.
However, after Disney executives saw the storyboards, they relinquished creative control to Pixar. The core idea of Toy Story was present from the treatment onward. Katzenberg felt the original treatment was problematic and told Lasseter to reshape Toy Story as more of an odd couple buddy picture, and suggested they watch some classic buddy movies such as The Defiant Ones and 48 Hours, in which two characters with different attitudes are thrown together and have to bond. Lasseter, Stanton, and Docter emerged in early September '91 with the second treatment, and although the lead characters were still Tinny and the Dummy, the outline of the final film was beginning to take shape. The script went through many changes before the final version. Lasseter decided Tinny was too antiquated, and the character was changed to a military action figure and then given a space theme. Tinny's name changed to Lunar Larry, then Tempest from Morph, and eventually Buzz Lightyear, named after astronaut Buzz Aldrin. Lightyear's design was modeled on the suits worn by Apollo astronauts as well as G.I. Joe action figures. In addition, the green and purple color scheme on Lightyear's suit was inspired by Lasseter and his wife, Nancy, whose favorite colors were green and purple respectively. Woody, the second character, was inspired by a Casper the Friendly Ghost doll that Lasseter had when he was a child. Originally, Woody was a ventriloquist dummy with a pull string, hence the name Woody. However, character designer Bud Luckey suggested that he could be changed to a cowboy ventriloquist dummy. Lasseter liked the contrast between the Western and science fiction genres, and the character immediately changed. Eventually, all the ventriloquist dummy aspects of the character were deleted, because the dummy was designed to look sneaky and mean. However, they kept the name Woody to pay homage to the Western actor Woody Strode. The story department drew inspiration from films such as Midnight Run and The Odd Couple, and Lasseter screened Miyazaki's Castle in the Sky for further influence. Toy Story's script was strongly influenced by the ideas of screenwriter Robert McKee. The members of Pixar's story team, Lasseter, Stanton, Docter, and Joe Ranft, were aware that most of them were beginners at writing for feature films. None of them had any feature, story, or writing credits to their names besides Ranft, who had taught a story class at Cal Arts and did some storyboard work prior. Seeking insight, Lasseter and Docter attended a 3-day seminar in Los Angeles given by McKee. His principles, grounded in Aristotle's Poetics, dictated that a character emerges most realistically and compellingly from the choices that the protagonist makes in reaction to his problems. Disney also appointed Joel Cohen, Alex Sokolow, and later Joss Whedon to help develop the script. Whedon found that the script wasn't working, but had a great structure, and added the character of Rex and sought a pivotal role for Barbie. The story team continued to touch up the script as production was underway. Among the late additions was the encounter between Buzz and the alien squeaky toys at Pizza Planet, which emerged from a brainstorming session with a dozen directors, story artists, and animators from Disney. Every couple of weeks, Lasseter and his team would put together their latest set of storyboards or footage to show Disney. In early screen tests, Pixar impressed Disney with a technical innovation, but convincing Disney of the plot was more difficult. At each presentation by Pixar, Katzenberg would tear much of it up, giving out detailed comments and notes. Katzenberg's big push was to add more edginess to the main character. Disney wanted the film to appeal both to children and adults, and asked for adult references to be added to the film. After many rounds of notes from Katzenberg and other Disney executives, the general consensus was that Woody had been stripped of almost all charm. Tom Hanks, while recording the dialogue for the story reels, exclaimed at one point that the character was a jerk. Lasseter and his Pixar team had the first half of the movie ready to screen, so they brought it down to Burbank to show to Katzenberg and other Disney executives on November 19, 1993, an event later dubbed the Black Friday Incident. The results were disastrous, and Schneider, who was never particularly enamored with Katzenberg's idea of having outsiders make animation for Disney, declared it a mess and ordered that production be stopped immediately. Katzenberg asked colleague Thomas Schumacher why the reels were so bad. Schumacher had this to say.
Jeffrey said, "Well, why is this so terrible?" to me in the hallway. I said, well, because it's not their movie anymore. It's completely not the movie that John set out to make.
Lasseter wasn't thrilled either.
And I tell you, I sat there and I was pretty much embarrassed with what was on the screen.
He asked Disney for the chance to retreat back to Pixar and rework the script in 2 weeks, and Katzenberg was supportive. Lasseter, Stanton, Docter, and Ranft delivered the news of the production shutdown to the production crew, many of whom had left other jobs to work on the project. In the meantime, the crew would shift to television commercials while the head writers worked out a new script. Although Lasseter kept morale high by remaining outwardly buoyant, the production shutdown was a very scary time. Schneider had initially wanted to shut down production altogether and fire all recently hired animators. Katzenberg put the film under the wing of Walt Disney Feature Animation. The Pixar team was pleased that the move would give them an open door to counseling from Disney's animation veterans. Schneider, however, continued to take a dim view of the project and would later go over Katzenberg's head to urge Eisner to cancel it. Stanton retreated into a small, dark, windowless office, emerging periodically with new script pages. He and the other story artists would then draw the shots on storyboards. Whedon came back to Pixar for part of the shutdown to help with revising, and the script was revised in 2 weeks as promised. When Katzenberg and Schneider halted production on Toy Story, Steve Jobs kept the work going with his own personal funding. Jobs did not insert himself into the creative process, respecting the artists at Pixar and instead managing the relationship with Disney. The Pixar team came back with a new script 3 months later, with the character of Woody morphed from being a tyrannical boss of Andy's other toys to being their wise and caring leader. It also included a more adult-oriented staff meeting amongst the toys rather than a juvenile group discussion that had existed in earlier drafts. Buzz Lightyear's character was also changed slightly to make it more clear to the audience that he really didn't realize that he was a toy.
You are a toy! You weren't the real Buzz Lightyear, you're an action figure!
Katzenberg and Schneider approved the new approach, and by February 1994, the film was back in production.
I'm back, baby!
The voice actors returned in March '94 to record the new lines. When production was green-lit, the crew quickly grew from its original size of 24 to 110, including 27 animators, 22 tactical directors, and 61 other artists and engineers. In comparison, The Lion King, released in '94, required a budget of $45 million and the staff of 800. In the early budgeting process, Jobs was eager to produce the film as efficiently as possible, impressing Katzenberg with his focus on cost-cutting. Despite this, the $17 million production budget was proving inadequate, especially given the major revisions that was necessary after Katzenberg had pushed them to make Woody too edgy. Jobs demanded more funds to complete the film right and insisted Disney was liable for the cost overruns. Katzenberg was not willing, and Ed Catmull was able to reach a compromise. There were 2 premieres of Toy Story in November '95. Disney organized one at the El Capitan Theater in Los Angeles and built a fun house, totally Toy Story, next door featuring the characters. Jobs did not attend and instead rented the Regency, a similar theater in San Francisco, and held his own premiere the next night. Instead of Tom Hanks and Tim Allen, the guests were Silicon Valley celebrities such as Larry Ellison and Andy Grove. The dueling premieres highlighted a festering issue between the companies, whether Toy Story was a Disney or a Pixar film. Toy Story opened on 2,281 screens in the United States on November 22, '95. Before later expanding to 2,574 screens, it was paired alongside a reissue of a Roger Rabbit short called Roller Coaster Rabbit, while select prints contained The Adventures of Andre and Wally B. Toy Story received critical acclaim. It remains, to this day, an international phenomenon. The technology was brilliant, the casting was inspired, and the story was able to identify with everyone. Here's looking forward to Toy Story 4. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thanks again for your support. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Tip of the hat to our wonderful patrons. This episode brought to you by Wikipedia. I'm BD, and I'll see you next week.
Right now, everything is great. Everyone is happy. Everyone is in love. And that's wonderful. But you got to know that someday, believe it or not, you'll go 15 rounds over who's going to get this coffee table. This stupid, wagon wheel, Roy Rogers garage sale coffee table.
I thought you liked it.
I was being nice!